The Silent Earth. They called it the 100 Days of Fire. The Vaxteri ships appeared without warning, their crystalline vessels refracting sunlight across Earth's atmosphere in deadly prismatic displays. Their energy weapons carved through our orbital defenses like paper, reducing centuries of space infrastructure to orbiting debris within hours. Military bases, communication centers, and major cities fell next. By all apparent measures, humanity had lost. Admiral Chen stood at the viewport of Bunker Zero, 3 kilometers beneath the Rockies, watching holographic representations of Vaxteri ships patrolling the skies above. Her weathered face reflected in the reinforced glass, dark eyes studying the tactical displays with measured calm. The aliens had won every engagement in the air and on the surface, but they had made one critical mistake. They assumed victory meant the same thing to humans as it did to them. "Status report," she commanded, her voice carrying across the command center's curved expanse. The room hummed with activity, displays showing a web of underground facilities spanning continents. Captain Marcus Rivera, her head of tactical operations, approached with a tablet. "The Vaxteri have declared Earth pacified, Admiral. They're beginning resource extraction operations in the former Pacific Command Zone." Chen allowed herself a small smile. "And our network? Fully operational. The last hub in Novosibirsk came online an hour ago. We're dark to their sensors, just as Dr. Patel predicted. They can't see anything below 50 meters." The Admiral nodded, remembering the young geophysicist's breakthrough in the early days. Dr. Patel had discovered that the Vaxteri's advanced scanning technology had one critical weakness: it couldn't penetrate dense rock with any meaningful resolution. Their crystalline-based technology, so effective in space and air, became virtually useless underground. "Begin Phase 2, Chen ordered. "Activate the mole teams." Across the globe, in thousands of hidden bunkers and converted mine shafts, humanity was about to demonstrate why you should never corner a species that evolved as persistence hunters. The mole teams were the first wave. Special forces units equipped with newly developed phased sonic drills and seismic charges. They would expand the network, creating new tunnels and chambers, while the Vaxteri harvested resources from a seemingly defeated planet. In her private office later that evening, Chen reviewed the latest intelligence. The Vaxteri were methodical, precise, and utterly predictable. They established their bases in perfect geometric patterns, always building upward, always reaching for the sky. It was almost poetic how their greatest strength would become their ultimate weakness. A soft chime announced Dr. Sarah Patel's arrival. The young scientist entered, her dark hair streaked with premature gray, a souvenir from those first desperate months of the invasion. "The seismic mapping is complete," she reported, projecting a detailed underground view of North America. "We've identified all major fault lines and geological stress points within range of their primary bases. The Earth itself is going to be our greatest weapon." Chen studied the map, noting the red markers indicating Vaxteri strongholds. They never considered that we would go deeper rather than higher. Their entire strategic doctrine is based on vertical supremacy. "It's more than that," Sarah added, highlighting a particular geological formation. "Their crystalline technology. It's catastrophically vulnerable to certain harmonic frequencies. The same frequencies we can generate through controlled seismic activity." The Admiral's eyes narrowed. "You're saying we can shatter their technology by making the Earth sing?" "Precisely. Every crystal has a resonant frequency. Hit it just right." Sarah made a crushing gesture with her hand. The next few hours were spent finalizing the first coordinated strike. Mole teams would plant seismic charges at carefully calculated points, while the main bunker network prepared for the inevitable retaliation. They would only get one chance to prove that humanity's apparent defeat was actually a strategic repositioning. As Chen dismissed her staff that evening, she paused at her viewport one last time. Somewhere up there, the Vaxteri were celebrating their easy victory, never suspecting that humans had simply changed the playing field. They thought they had conquered Earth, but they had only claimed its surface, a surface that would soon become very unstable indeed. "Send the signal," she commanded. Operation Groundshaker begins at dawn. Throughout the underground network, humanity prepared for war. Not the kind of war the Vaxteri understood, with ships and energy weapons and orbital supremacy. This would be a war of tunnels and tremors, of sonic weapons and seismic strikes. A war that would teach an advanced alien race why humans had always been comfortable in the dark and why Earth's depths had always been our refuge. The Vaxteri had won the sky, but they were about to learn that humanity's strength went far deeper than they could imagine. Echoes below. The first Vaxteri base fell 3 weeks after Operation Groundshaker began. It didn't explode or burn. It simply collapsed, its crystalline structures shattering in perfect harmony as precisely calibrated seismic waves rippled through the bedrock beneath it. The aliens' confused distress signals were music to Lieutenant Maya Rodriguez's ears as she watched through her enhanced optics from 2 kilometers below. "Target Alpha is down," she whispered into her neural comm. Her mole team, designated Shadow 6, lay perfectly still in their observation post, a small chamber carved into solid granite. Their phase-shifted suits rendered them invisible to Vaxteri sensors, turning the team into nothing more than background radiation. "Confirmed," came the response from Bunker 0. "Begin Phase 2. Hit their response teams." Maya signaled her squad with hand gestures, though they could have communicated through their neural links. Some habits from surface warfare died hard. They activated their sonic drills, beautiful pieces of engineering that could cut through rock without sound or vibration, leaving tunnels as smooth as glass. The true genius of the human counter-offensive wasn't just going underground. It was turning the underground into a weapon. Every tunnel they dug changed the geological composition of the area. Every chamber they carved altered how seismic waves would propagate. They weren't just hiding beneath the earth. They were turning it into an instrument of war. "Contact," her second-in-command, Sergeant Chenwei, reported. "Vaxteri recovery teams inbound. 3 heavy carriers, Crystal class." Maya smiled beneath her helmet. The aliens were so predictable. Their response protocols never varied. Send in the recovery teams. Establish a perimeter. Rebuild. They hadn't yet realized that every response team they sent was giving humans more targets. "Execute Sonic Pattern Delta," she ordered. The team activated their modified seismic transmitters, sending carefully calculated frequencies through the rock. Above them, the Vaxteri vessels began to vibrate. The crystalline alloys of their hulls, so resistant to conventional weapons, began to resonate with the Earth itself. The aliens never saw it coming. Their ships didn't explode. They disintegrated, scattered into glittering dust by waves of sound they couldn't even detect. Maya's team was already moving, using their drills to create new escape tunnels before the dust settled above. Back at Bunker 0, Admiral Chen watched the operation unfold with grim satisfaction. Dozens of similar attacks were happening simultaneously across the globe. The Vaxteri were losing ships and bases faster than they could respond, and they still hadn't figured out how. "Their command structure is showing signs of stress," Dr. Puddle reported, analyzing real-time data. "They're pulling back from several regions, trying to consolidate their forces." Chen nodded. "They're finally learning fear." "How long until the next phase?" "The tunnel network reaches 82% of their major installations. Give us another week, and we'll be ready for the big push." The Admiral studied the global map, watching the underground network spread like roots beneath the alien occupation. Humanity had turned their defeat into an advantage, using the enemy's victory to mask their true preparations. The Vaxteri controlled the surface, but they were standing on a foundation that humans were quietly hollowing out. In her quarters that evening, Maya reviewed the day's footage. The sight of Vaxteri ships dissolving into crystalline rain was satisfying, but it wasn't enough. Her team had lost friends and family in the initial invasion. The aliens had taken the sky from humanity, but in doing so, they had given humans a reason to perfect what they had always been good at: adapting, surviving, and turning weakness into strength. "Lieutenant," her comm crackled. "Priority message from command." The orders that followed made her breath catch. Operation Deep Strike was being accelerated. The Vaxteri were gathering their forces for what they thought would be a final push to root out the human resistance. They had no idea they were walking into humanity's trap. "Alert the team," she commanded. "We're moving to Phase 3. As Maya's squad prepared for their next mission, she thought about how the aliens had misunderstood humanity from the start. They saw our cities reaching for the sky and assumed we were like them, always striving upward. They never considered that humans had spent most of their history looking down, digging deep, finding refuge in caves and tunnels. The Vaxteri had brought their war to Earth, expecting a simple victory. Instead, they had awakened something that had been sleeping in humanity's collective memory. The knowledge that sometimes the only way to win was to dig deep, to embrace the darkness, and to strike from below. Phase 3 would teach them why humans had never feared the underground. It would teach them why, throughout our history, we had always returned to the Earth's embrace when we needed strength. The real war was about to begin, and this time, humanity would be fighting on its own terms. The web beneath, the Shanghai undercomplex sprawled through ancient bedrock like a vast mechanical ant colony. Once a modest metro system, it had been transformed into humanity's largest underground manufacturing center. Dr. Sarah Patel stood in its central chamber, watching automated fabricators construct the weapons that would change the course of the war. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Professor Zhang Wei, the facility's chief engineer, gestured at the crystalline arrays being assembled before them. "We've reversed their own technology against them. Every crystal they left scattered on our surface has taught us something new." Sarah nodded, remembering the breakthrough that had led them here. They never imagined we could adapt their tech so quickly. They thought their crystalline matrix was too advanced for us to understand. But understand it they had. Humans had been working with crystals since before recorded history. The Vaxteri's mistake was assuming that technological superiority meant their fundamental principles were beyond human comprehension. Above them, through kilometers of rock, the aliens were conducting another purification sweep of the ruined city. Their sensors would show them exactly what humans wanted them to see: scattered heat signatures, desperate survivors, a defeated population scavenging among the ruins. Status report. Admiral Chen's hologram materialized beside them, projected from Bunker 0. "The resonance network is at 94% completion," Sarah responded, pulling up a global overlay. "We've seeded crystalline receivers throughout their major strongholds. When we activate the system, their entire command and control network will experience what humans would call a feedback loop," Professor Zhang finished. "Every piece of their technology will become a weapon against them." The Admiral's hologram nodded. "Timeline: 48 hours until we reach critical mass. But there's something else." Sarah hesitated. "We've detected unusual movements in their fleet. They're gathering above the Pacific. They're planning something big," Chen mused. "Good. Let them commit their forces. That's exactly what we need." The meeting was interrupted by a proximity alert. A Vaxteri deep scanning probe had penetrated further than any before, reaching nearly a kilometer beneath the surface. New protocols, new adaptations. The aliens were learning. "Countermeasures," Zhang ordered calmly. Throughout the complex, crystalline arrays pulsed with carefully tuned frequencies. The probe's sensors would receive only what they wanted it to see: natural cave formations, nothing more. In her private lab later that day, Sarah studied the latest data from the probe encounter. The Vaxteri were adapting faster than expected, but so were humans. Every probe they sent taught humanity more about their technology. Every scan they performed revealed more about their methods. Lieutenant Rodriguez's voice came through her comm. "Dr. Patel, we've got something you need to see." Shadow 6 just returned from perimeter recon. The footage Maya's team had captured was troubling. The Vaxteri were deploying new equipment, massive drilling platforms that pulsed with exotic energy. They were finally taking the fight underground. "They're scared," Maya observed, her hologram joining the impromptu conference. "They know we're down here, but they can't find us." These drills are acts of desperation. Sarah's mind raced through calculations. "No, this is perfect. Their drills will actually amplify what we're planning. They're going to help us build our resonance network without even knowing it." The next day was a blur of activity. Throughout the global underground network, humanity's forces made final preparations. The Vaxteries drilling operations were spreading, exactly as predicted. Each new borehole became another conduit for what was to come. Admiral Chen authorized the final phase from Bunker Zero. Operation Resonance Storm begins at dawn. All units, prepare for maximum displacement. In Shanghai, Sarah stood before the master control array, her hand steady as she initialized the crystalline matrix. Beside her, Professor Zhang monitored the growing power signatures. Above them, the Vaxteri continued their futile drilling, unknowingly completing the very network that would be their undoing. "They never understood what Earth really is," Sarah mused. "They saw a planet to conquer. They should have seen a weapon waiting to be used." The crystalline arrays hummed with increasing power, each carefully tuned to match the resonant frequencies of Vaxteri technology. When the signal was given, every piece of their advanced technology, from their massive ships to their smallest sensors, would become a point of destructive resonance. Humanity had spent months weaving this web beneath the Earth's surface. Now it was time to pull the strings and watch their enemies dance. The Vaxteri had brought war to Earth thinking they understood combat. They were about to learn that humans had turned warfare into an art form long before they reached the stars. As the final preparations were completed, Sarah thought about the poetry of it all. The aliens who had sought to conquer Earth from above would be defeated by the very ground they stood upon. Sometimes, she reflected, the greatest victories come not from rising up, but from going deep enough to find her strength. The war's true ending was about to begin, and it would start not with a bang, but with a resonance that would shake the Earth to its core. Rising tide. The signal began as a whisper through the Earth's crust. Deep beneath the Mariana Trench, in a facility carved into the bedrock of the ocean floor, Commander James Ortiz activated humanity's most ambitious weapon yet, the lithosphere harmonic array. As power surged through the crystalline network, the planet itself began to sing. "Resonance cascade initiating," his systems officer reported. "All nodes responding. The web is alive." Around the globe, in thousands of underground installations, similar reports echoed through secure channels. The network humanity had spent months building was finally awakening. Each crystal, each carefully placed sonic transmitter, each repurposed piece of Vaxteri technology began to pulse in perfect harmony. Admiral Chen watched from Bunker Zero as the first waves of energy rippled through the Earth's crust. On her tactical display, Vaxteri installations began to flicker. Their crystalline technology, so elegant in its complexity, was about to become their greatest vulnerability. "First phase confirmed," Dr. Patel's voice came through, steady despite the tension. "Their ground-based systems are experiencing cascading failures. Moving to Phase 2. Above ground, the Vaxteri responded with characteristic precision. Emergency protocols activated. Backup systems engage. Secondary command networks initialized. But each countermeasure they deployed only added more nodes to humanity's resonating web. Lieutenant Rodriguez and Shadow 6 monitored from their observation post near what had once been Beijing. The massive Vaxteri command spire there was already showing signs of stress, its crystalline surface vibrating at frequencies just beyond visible range. "Look at them scramble," Maya whispered, watching through enhanced optics as alien crews rushed to reinforce their failing structures. "They still think this is a technical malfunction." The true genius of humanity's plan wasn't just in the technology, it was in the timing. As the Vaxteri rushed to respond to what they thought were isolated system failures, human forces began their coordinated rise from below. Mole teams across the planet activated their phase-shifted armor, and emerged from hidden tunnels. Each team carried specially designed sonic disruptors, weapons that could shatter Vaxteri technology with precisely tuned frequencies. The aliens had spent months hunting for human resistance on the surface, never realizing that the entire planet had become one vast trap. Multiple Vaxteri capital ships detecting anomalies. The Global Command Network reported. Their fleet is attempting emergency protocols. Admiral Chen allowed herself a grim smile. Initiate Operation Groundswell. All teams, execute as planned. The next phase was beautiful in its devastation. As the resonance cascade reached its peak, Vaxteri ships began to fall from the sky. Not in flames or explosions, but in showers of crystalline dust. Their mighty vessels, once seemingly invincible, dissolved as the very frequencies they used for communication turned against them. In Shanghai, Professor Zhang watched through monitoring stations as his theories were proven correct. Their entire command structure is based on crystalline quantum networks, he explained to the command staff. By matching the resonant frequencies of their base technology, we're not just destroying their equipment, we're erasing their ability to coordinate. The Vaxteri response was exactly as predicted. Their remaining ships attempted to retreat to high orbit, beyond the reach of the ground-based resonance. But humanity had prepared for this too. Activate the orbital arrays, Chen ordered. Hidden satellites, placed long before the invasion and dormant until now, powered up. The resonance field extended beyond the atmosphere, creating a sphere of destructive harmonics around the entire planet. There would be no escape. Maya's team was among the first to breach a major Vaxteri installation. They found the alien defenders in disarray, their weapons failing, their communication systems offline. The mighty conquerors were experiencing something they had never faced before: total technological collapse. "This is Shadow 6, she reported. "Western Command Hub secured. You won't believe what we're finding in their databases." The information streaming in from captured Vaxteri facilities painted a clear picture. The aliens had never encountered a species that fought quite like humans. Their military doctrine was based on technological superiority and strict hierarchical command. The idea of a distributed resistance, of turning an entire planet into a weapon, was outside their comprehension. As the day progressed, more Vaxteri strongholds fell, not through conventional combat, but through the systematic failure of every piece of technology they relied upon. The conquerors who had arrived with such overwhelming force were being defeated by the very principles that had made them strong. In Bunker Zero, Admiral Chen received confirmation after confirmation of human victories, but she knew better than to celebrate too early. "Maintain resonance levels," she ordered. "They're not beaten yet." She was right. Even as their technology failed around them, the Vaxteri were adapting. Their remaining forces were attempting to switch to more primitive methods, abandoning their crystalline tech for cruder alternatives. But in doing so, they were playing directly into humanity's hands. The final phase of Operation Groundswell was about to begin, and with it, the true meaning of Earth's defense would become clear. The planet hadn't just been humanity's shelter, it had been their teacher, showing them that true strength often lies beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to emerge. Breaking ground. The Vaxteri Supreme Commander stood in the ruins of their primary Earth command center, watching their empire crumble. The crystalline towers that had once stretched proudly toward the sky now lay scattered like broken glass across the landscape. For the first time in their species' history, they faced not just defeat, but complete tactical incomprehension. Below ground, Admiral Chen received the transmission they had been waiting for. The Vaxteri were requesting parley. Not surrender, not yet. Their pride wouldn't allow that. But the request itself was victory enough. "Your species," the Supreme Commander's translated message echoed through Bunker Zero's command center, "fights in ways that defy strategic logic. You turn defeat into a weapon." Explain. Chen's response was measured, calculated. "We didn't turn defeat into a weapon. We turned the Earth itself into one. You never understood what you were really fighting." Dr. Sarah Puttle stood at her station, monitoring the resonance networks that now encircled the planet. The Vaxteri's remaining ships hung in high orbit, trapped between the destructive harmonics below and the void above. Their mighty fleet, reduced to observers of their own downfall. "Show them," Chen ordered. Sarah activated the global display. Across every continent, beneath every ocean, the true extent of humanity's underground civilization was revealed. Not just military bunkers and weapon platforms, but entire cities, laboratories, factories, farms. While the Vaxteri had celebrated their surface victory, humanity had built a new world beneath their feet. "Impossible," the Supreme Commander's response came. "Your species had barely reached your moon. The engineering required for this was inspired by you," Professor Zhang interrupted, his hologram joining the conference. "Every piece of technology you left on our surface taught us something new. We didn't just hide underground. We evolved there." Lieutenant Rodriguez and Shadow 6 emerged from their final mission, securing the last major Vaxteri ground installation. The aliens they encountered weren't the proud warriors who had arrived months ago. These were confused, almost desperate beings, struggling to understand how their absolute superiority had been so completely undone. "You assumed," Chen continued, "that a species would fight as they built. You saw our towers reaching for the stars and thought we would try to match you in the sky. But humans, we've always been diggers, miners, tunnelers. We've spent more of our history looking down than up." The display shifted, showing the intricate network of tunnels and chambers that now honeycomb the Earth's crust, each one placed with precise calculation, turning the planet's geology into a vast, resonating chamber. "Your invasion gave us something we've never had before," Sarah added. "Unity. Purpose. When you took the sky from us, you forced us to remember our oldest strengths." The Supreme Commander's next transmission carried a note that the translators struggled to convey. Something between awe and fear. The resources required. The coordination. Impossible for a non-unified species. "That was your final mistake," Chen replied, thinking that unity meant centralization. "Humans are at our strongest when we're scattered, when we're forced to innovate separately and share our solutions. Each bunker, each underground city, developed its own answers to the problems you created. We didn't need a single solution. We created thousands." The resonance network pulsed once, a demonstration. Across the planet, remaining Vaxteri technology shuddered in response, a reminder of how complete humanity's control had become. "Your terms," the Supreme Commander asked. Admiral Chen looked around the command center, at the faces of those who had helped engineer this victory. Maya's tactical brilliance, Sarah's scientific insight, Zhang's engineering genius, each representing thousands more who had contributed to humanity's greatest triumph. "You will leave," Chen stated simply. "But first, you will watch. Watch as we emerge from below. Watch as we rebuild what you destroyed. Watch as we take our first true steps into the galaxy. Not as conquerors, like you, but as survivors who understand that true strength often lies beneath the surface." The terms were transmitted. The Vaxteri fleet, what remained of it, would be allowed to retreat beyond the solar system, but they would carry with them something more valuable than territory: knowledge. Knowledge that humans were not merely another spacefaring race to be conquered. They were something else entirely. As the alien ships began their withdrawal, humanity emerged from below. Cities rose from underground, built with technology that merged human ingenuity with reverse-engineered Vaxteri systems. The planet's surface would be restored, but it would never be the same. Neither would humanity. "We should thank them." In a way, Sarah mused, standing with Chen in the new surface installation that had once been Bunker Zero. "They taught us what we really are." "And what's that?" the Admiral asked, watching the sunset for the first time in months. "Adaptable, resilient, but most importantly, connected, not just to each other, but to the Earth itself. We didn't just survive underground. We remembered that we came from it." The war had changed humanity forever. The species that emerged from below was not the same one that had been driven there. They had gone into the dark as scattered survivors and emerged as something new. A civilization that understood that true power wasn't about reaching for the stars, but about keeping your feet firmly planted in the ground beneath them. The Vaxteri had come to Earth expecting to find another race reaching for the sky. Instead, they had discovered that sometimes the most dangerous adversaries are the ones who remember their roots, who know that victory doesn't always come from rising up, but from digging deep.